Obviously, I haven't done this in a hot minute because I am not capable of doing half of it. Um, so I'm really glad everybody's like to see everybody and did yeah. Um, when we're looking at her stuff, it is showing to me that she was probably when I look at the lithics, and I know that we have tattooing that far back, and I know how early tattooing can probably come about and the different things that we've seen with early tattooing, as well as different things that we see with tattooing today, different tattooing traditions that we've had across the globe, right? When when I look at all the different compilation of knowledges that I have about how this works, this to me looks like a marking kit. It looks like a kit where she's probably marking. Hey, good to see you, Miranda. And the reason that I think that this is probably a marking kit is between the lithics. So the lithics are all kept in a case. There's a hollowed out bone with actually like a hole in it, and the lithics are kept in this case. Um, there's a case that held red ochre, and there is a stick that's obviously being used to kind of break up the ochre. And there's a stick that they think is used for putting the ochre on the skin. Now, this could absolutely just be that she paints her skin with ochre with this stick. Absolutely. For me, it is the presence of having the microlithics in there that gives me the idea that she was probably involved in some method of cutting people as a ceremonial thing, that there is some method of cutting people in a ceremonial manner that is interactive with her. And so for me, the idea that there's some method of cutting people with a ceremonial interaction, right? And having the presence of the ochre and having the presence of the ability to kind of put it on the skin or into the skin would tell me that she's permanently marking people in some method or another. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and she predates the Nordic age, the Viking age by several thousand years because she's like 9,000 years old. Right. So, uh, absolutely. We do see tattoos of, there's several tattoos. The Kazakh tattoos are really huge and present. We also see tattooing of Otzi. We see tattoos are pretty common in Eurasia for thousands and thousands of years. And the oldest tattooing evidence that we have in Eurasia comes from a cave in France that's 32,000 years old. So we do see that there is tattooing, and then we do see that there is tattoos somewhat within the Viking Age. We see evidence of it because Ibram, Ibn, I can't remember his last name, actually documents, but they don't document them as going further than this. They document it as going up to here, and then they document using a kuhul in the eyes or on the eyes to kind of, fathom, yes, to reflect that bounce. But he documents it in the Rus, who were Nordic Vikings who had come down the Russian River and I guess in effect colonize the land because there are absolutely people there that they're taking over from, right? So he does document it in groups. It's not documented up higher. Though we also see that the Romans document tattooing among many different groups of people, both Germanic and Celtic, and like the Syrians and the Scythians and stuff like that. And that could be. I personally think it's tattooing because of the fact that he makes a differentiation. Um, and because of the fact that I can see similarities in many of the different tattooing uh, portions throughout history. I don't think that okays, stealing from other people's cultures when you don't know if it belongs to a culture or not, right? Like, so I don't think that there's any way, shape, or form that you can take that and apply it to face tattoos or chin lines or things like that. Um, I do think that, we're talking about people who are constantly interacting with groups that we have well documentations of tattooing too. So you're going to see there is some not taking from them, but understanding from them. Like not like if I'm Latvian, that I'm going to interact with somebody from the Hebrides or somebody from northern Scotland and see the tattooing there and decide that I'm going to put the Celtic Triskel on my body, right? But I might get the idea that having tattoos is something that can be done, right? I didn't know it talk about people in Hedeby. I know that Fadlan is talking about Rus who had come down the Russian river, or the river that became Russian a name because of the Rus. But I don't think he was talking about Hedeby at all. And she's not. I mean, she's in Germany, so she's in Eastern Germany. Eastern Germany, I think. Let me make sure. I believe that's what I said earlier, but I want to make sure. Um, And actually, they think that she is more related to, and this isn't DNA, it's through the evidence of what's found with her. Um, they think that she's actually more related to the Tungu people of Russia, right? Uh, the indigenous people of Russia who were actually colonized in the 1600s, which is where we get the name, the word shaman from, is from the Tungu people of Russia. And so that's why they're calling her a shaman above other things, is because of the, and it's not like they've compared her genes to the Tungu people. It's that the artifacts found and the association with the red or the roe deer, and the way that the artifacts were set up very much are still alive in many of the Tungu people cultures exchange today, right? And so they think with her that she was probably, um, I mean, they don't have like her DNA, so they can't say, she's related to the, well, they have her DNA, but like they don't have a comparison of her DNA to current people at this point of time that I can find. And so they're not going, well, she's an ancestor of the Germanics or an ancestor of the Tungu. They're going by the artifacts and saying, yeah, and that makes sense too. Well, and so as we were talking about earlier, and what I mentioned a little bit in the video that I did on her, um, I personally believe that all the gods that we have are actual people who lived, who reached a state of being associated with being powerful enough that they become archetypes, that they become god figures in our heads and in our minds. And I personally believe that that is something that we see lasting throughout eternity. That like the thought processes of those, like I think that Zeus was probably a man who was quite lecherous, and like, and then people just associated that. Um, so I do think that this kind of translates down. And when we look at her, one of the most impactful things to me is the fact that 600 years later, people were coming to the site of her grave and leaving offerings. So when they did the initial excavation, they couldn't do a whole lot because the pipe layers are there laying pipe, and they're building pipe for a spa. They pull out what they can. Of course, it is Germany in the 30s. It's decided that this is a Aryan male. Um, yeah, yeah, and I think that that's very true, right? Um, so the guy who, the archaeologist who actually came out and was able to do the part of the excavation that was documented, there is a local teacher who got as much out as he could initially, and then an archaeologist came out and drew up a drawing, which in that time was not as usual it is today. Today, when we go out and we do archaeological digs, like you put a square, and it's a meter by meter, right? And you draw out each layer as you're like scraping it down, like, oh, there's a rock, and you draw a rock. Oh, this one has a, a piece of wood over here, and this one has, like you draw that out so that as you're coming down, you're able to visualize what's in every layer, right? And you're able to place this right in your head. So they don't start doing this until the late 1800s. Halmar Stope, who did the excavations at Björkö in Mallaren, actually is one of the earliest who did this, and the drawing of BJ 581 has become quite legendary. So he's one of the first that did it. Henning, the archaeologist who did the initial excavation for the Bad Durrenberg, also did this. And so they were able to take the drawing that he did back there in 2010, and they were able to excavate more. When they went back in 2010, basically what they did is they just pulled out 2 cubes of earth and took those 2 cubes back to a warehouse, and they were able to actually use thermal luminescence and do heat signatures as well, and able to um, get an image intact of what was going on inside these blocks of earth. And in doing that, what they found was there is a the grave that her and the baby are in is a rectangular shaft, right? And they're buried kind of sitting up, and the baby is buried between her legs, right? And they have they have the grave goods that came with her, the belongings that she has. And as they go out from her grave, they have belongings. They have things buried. And these things that are buried at different levels. So the longest distance between her grave and one of the things that was brought to her grave, one of the belongings that was brought as offerings to her grave, is 600 years. So 600 years after this woman dies and is interred, people are still bringing offerings to her. People are still looking at her as being a sacred symbol. I was saying earlier, I really like the word dis. It's ancient Norwegian for female spirit, uh, 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 a female spirit of your line, basically, right? Like your ancestral. And to me, I think that dis is a really good, appropriate term for someone like her. This is somebody who her guardianship of her line lasted for 600 years, right? The baby that they found between her legs is either her fourth great grandson, again, she died at 30, or it is a distant cousin. So either this baby was brought to her as a distant cousin while she was recently dead or still alive, to be healed, because this baby seems to have had some vitamin deficiencies. It doesn't say what vitamin deficiencies, it just says vitamin deficiencies. Um, and this baby was able to be either brought to her to be healed as a distant cousin of hers, so a distant family member, which would indicate a broader community, right? A distant family member being brought to her would indicate either a large community that's spread out, that's all or a broader community of small communities that are all intermixing, right? Are all interreacting or acting, right? So it's either a baby that was brought to her to be healed, roughly a year old, and then was buried with her when the baby wasn't able to be healed, or it is her grandson who was brought to her grave and buried in her grave generations later, right? Yeah. And that, to me, this is it. This is when we look at how we think of deity, right? When we think of saints, when we think of gods, when we in any level that we think of that connection, this, to me, this is it. Like, this is how this becomes. This is how this is created. We have somebody who from birth is able to enter into an altered state on will, right? And goes through a tremendous uh, voluntary trauma to increase that ability, right? And as we see, her go through that, and as we see, she is unable, she doesn't do a lot of going out and doing, right? She stays home, and I kind of, in my mind, I can picture this woman sitting with her headdress and her decorations, because these are who she is, right? So these are the things that she's wearing on a daily basis. It's not like we're changing in and out of these things regularly. In her stuff and her accoutrements, the under stuff is probably getting changed a little bit more. But her badges of office, her statement of station, right? Who she is, right? Sitting probably, in my mind, I picture kind of like in my mind, I can picture almost like shelving or a raised station behind her as she's sitting. And I can picture like on a fur, and I can picture her stuff spread out, like the things that she might need are quickly accessible, probably in bags, uh, maybe in baskets, things that are quickly accessible. And she is at a communal hearth, or a hearth where other people are around on a regular basis. I don't see her being isolated. To me, that's not necessarily something that we see a whole lot of. I do see that that is something that happens, and that is a possibility. It's just not me who sees it, right? Not this one. This one is the bad Durrenberg shaman. I'm not sure which one you're looking at, but this one is the bad Durrenberg shaman. Oh, okay, okay, that makes sense. Sorry, Fable, that makes sense. So I picture her sitting surrounded, not surrounded, not like a constant influx of people, but her people right there. What do you need? How can I take care of you? And she is there because her purpose in her community. We've talked before about your talents bring your purpose. Your talents are what give you your space within community. If your talent is leatherworking, this is what you do for your community. And if somebody else's talent is hunting, what they do is they help supply the food so that you can supply the clothes, right? Your talents come into it, right? And so I picture her as her talent being what she brings to community, who she is to community, always being a part of it, right? So I picture her as sitting there in this space, with her head kind of down, trying not to back and to the left. Oh, that's what it is. It's back and to the left, back and to the left. I can't remember the movie, but I can remember the picture now. Um, so I picture her sitting there, kind of keeping herself like this, she's active. She doesn't show no activity, right? Because it does show that, well, she's not as active and athletic as her community, that she is definitely more active and athletic than we are today, right? So she's still doing things and she's still functioning, but she's spending most of her time sitting because this is what she brings, right? This is her gift. This is her knowledge. This is what she brings. I picture this as something that, again, looking at the tools, I do believe that she is doing some form of body modification, body artwork. Um, I also believe that this is a very ritualistic body artwork, right? This is something that, if say you are a hunter, right? And you are trying to, like, it's been a bad year and you can't find, things, or maybe you're a hunter and you're just, getting inducted into the halls of the men and women who hunt, right? You're now moving forward. You've gone from your adolescence and now you're going out to hunt, and maybe you go through a ceremonial period, and during that ceremonial period, I do think from the look of the tools that she is doing some body modification. My picture is that she is using the lithics to slice, and then she is using the ochre, and rubbing this into the skin, right? Using the stick and the ochre grinding stick and everything else that she's got, and the ochre applying stick, and she's applying the ochre to the cut. That is my picture in my mind. Um, I also would think that, so if I honestly don't think, well, the woman and the infant were put together in a shaft, right? A rectangular shaft. In my mind, I picture her being, not necessarily being interred in the beginning. Now, again, this is to my thought process, considering all the things that are left around her as time goes on. I almost picture some of the old mummified remains that we have in certain spaces, where the mummified remain is back here and it's holding, offerings and stuff like that. I'm not quite sure if she mummified. I'm not quite sure if, like they put her in, a specific, like, if she was where she eventually ended up being and she had things built up around her and eventually, as they inter her, right? But yeah. And so I think that with this, I think that she remained a ceremonial and influential member of her community for a long time after she actually passed, right? Um, when we're looking at the different things, I mean, literally, she had everything, right? She has all of these. She doesn't seem to have all of the tools that she needs, right? Or like she's not doing a whole lot of activity with tools. She's not out doing a whole bunch of stuff with the tools. But I do see that she has tools that she needs to more ceremonial tools that she needs, right? Um, and I think that we're looking at somebody who created a powerful focal point for community, right? And that powerful focal point lives on for generation upon generation. So those are the things that I have found and seen with it. I've only done some dive. Actually, I was sent a video that Archeo Death did recently, and I was like, oh, okay. And so I did some dive to see what might actually, be going on with it, and have been very impressed in my dive. So I don't have all the information yet. I'm still diving. As suggested earlier, I do want to have people come up this afternoon and do some discussion points, right? It is a small live. It's definitely people who have a tendency to be very much a safe interaction zone for me. And so I do want to go ahead and do that. So I am going to go ahead and open it up. Maybe. I don't know if it'll let me have guests. 1 second. Oh, no. Okay, that's right. I cannot do guests today. I have to go live 3 more times before I can do guests. They have this new setup where they don't let you do guest your first live. You have to go live for 30 minutes, which we've already accomplished. And then you have to go live 3 separate occasions. I think it's 3 separate days. Yeah, it's 3 separate days. So I have to do 2 more days of going live. But I think that we should do that once we get to that point, Atira, and I think that's a great idea. And we can do questions anyways, even though I can't have other people up. We can definitely do questions and go over a few things. We can also, if you want, discuss other topics. If there's other things that you want to discuss that we haven't been able to talk about in the last month or so. And then my plan is that I'm probably going to try and be live a few hours a day over the next few days to try and get everything back up and going. I actually really missed going live. Like I do enjoy it, and I tried to do the podcast and do it with YouTube, but I don't get there's not a lot of interaction. And for me, it's a lot of that interaction really that pulls me into it, like gives me the desire to do it, right? And so it's hard to do without the interaction. Like I stumble over half of it. Like I can't think clearly without the interaction. Thank you guys. I miss coming live. I did. I'm like, shit, this is no fun. Well, first I was like, shit, maybe I just need to stop. Like maybe I should just go focus on something else. Maybe I should just. And I was like, wow, I kind of miss that. Like, and just having like the community. There's definitely community, right? We've developed and are able to develop a community. A lot of people I found by being able to go to other friends, mutual friends, followers, and go, oh, I know that name, right? Like I'm looking for people, and I'm like, oh, I know that name. That's it. That's the one I'm looking for, right? And so, the ability to build that community and have that community of like-minded thought processes, I think is really something I've missed. I am live streaming on YouTube as well. Yeah, I'm currently live streaming on YouTube, actually. I've got a couple people over there. People on YouTube don't tend to talk as much. I do get some comments over there, but there's not as much interaction over there. Not that you have to interact anymore, YouTube. I'm not telling you that. I'm just saying there's just not as much of interaction as there is over here. So it's a little bit. I haven't tried Twitch. I did try and start a podcast that I'm able to upload to Spotify. And now that we're doing this, I'll probably end up podcasting this. I haven't done Twitch yet. YouTube is in Widda Ord, so it's basically the same name as here, and I think it's the exact same now because I don't have the dots. Yeah, it's at and Widda Ord, just like it is here, um, over on YouTube. Yeah. YouTube does cut me off quite a or, TikTok does cut me off quite a bit. Well, I was really surprised that, like, I had 200 followers and I was getting mass reported already. Like, I had, like, 4 or 5 reports. I logged in one day and I had, like, 4 or 5 reports, and they were the stupidest. Like, every single one of them was about sexual stuff, right? And it was like, this is not a video that even mentions human biology. Like, I mean, what do you mean? I was like, ugh. Yeah, well, and I'm trying to branch out a little bit more. I'm thinking actually about creating a different Facebook account. I use Facebook as a kind of family affair, and I have like people that I met in Standing Rock and stuff like that. There are people that I protested with here, and so I don't have like a broad thing on Facebook. Plus, the fact that Facebook, I spent so much time in Facebook jail that I don't think I can really use that account for public access. So I'm thinking I'm going to start a new Facebook account and use that as well. And then I've been on Instagram, but I haven't been doing a lot on Instagram. And I'm hoping to up that a little bit more. I am trying to figure out a way. I have a tablet and I want to figure out a way where I can actually do draw on the background so that we can actually have conversations about different things. I have. I'm going to brag a little bit and say that all the hard time that I've ever done, or all the time I've ever done, period, has always been for activism. If I'm not being arrested for protesting, I'm being thrown in Facebook jailed or TikTok jailed for my anti-hate campaign. So I'm going to brag just a little bit and say that all the time I've ever done has been in the realm of doing, good things at least, or what I believe to be positive things at least. So, and you all did. I mean, the only reason I'm able to go live again is because everybody helped break me out on here, right? Getting everybody to, back and having everybody back, right? Um, well, in Facebook jail, I stopped using Facebook because I got 888 days suspension on Facebook. It was probably my 20th or 30th time in Facebook jail, but it was like this indeterminate amount of days. And I went, well, okay, see you later. Like, have fun. Um, so I know I can go live there, but I don't think like I don't think that well, first I do want to keep distinct. Like I want to have my space that's me and the people that I know and mainly my family. I've only actually got a few people on there that aren't family and they are people that I've protested or stood lines with, right? So they're family in a certain way. But I do want to keep it that way in part, but also because I've been in jailed on Facebook for so many times that it kind of algorithms it out, right? I don't usually, anyways. And then or not TikTok, Insta. I don't even understand Insta yet. I mean, I guess the best way to run from the book burning police is to make it to where your books aren't burnable. Get your books on Kindle or some other. Oh, there's a lot of free reading apps out there too. Get it on your phone, and it's less likely that they can burn it. Um, I've got people that want me to actually move to Texas, and so like I'm not sure. Like I'm like, or rather, nobody wants me to move to Texas. My children might be moving to Texas, which means that I might need to follow them so that I can see them because. But with that, my underage children, not my adult children. I don't follow my adult children around the country. So I'm like, you want me to go where? You want me to go where? think so. I think biology does. I think that and because biology keeps history is such a propaganda tool and machine. Like history is literally written story, which means that everything is through somebody's interpretation of what happened, you know? And if everything is through somebody's interpretation of what happened, then there's not a whole lot of accuracy within it a lot of the times, right? Somebody telling a singular side of a story doesn't give us anything. We should always have more than one side of a story to get the full truth because the full truth is never in one side of a story. Um, and so I think that when we look at things like biology and science and archaeology and anthropology, we can actually get a more accurate look at history or at what is gone, like prehistory, things like that, what has happened in this world. Um, Not that, well, mainly I think because you're compiling several different sources of information at that point. And when you're compiling several different sources of information together, again, more sources of information provide a broader understanding. Um, and then if you're compiling multiple sources of information, like like if all you had was the teeth of this shaman and you could see where they were filed down, but you didn't have her spine, you wouldn't know if that was something that was done. Maybe it was done to mark her as a lesser member of society, right? Maybe it was done to torture her. You wouldn't know that without the combination of her spine, right? I kind of think that that's like my life's work is a study on that. I think that that's really what it is because it's very much to me, it's about how we came to be who we are today, and who we were, right? So I think that's kind of what it is, really. Um, uh, I think for me, sometimes I feel like, and I know what your response is to this because I love you so much, and I know exactly what your response is to this. Um, I think that many people would find it offensive coming from me. And so, because I think that many people would find it as if I was stating that I knew more about specific cultures than people know about their own culture, instead of understanding or knowing that that I'm taking it from being intersectional and multicultural. I kind of worry about things like that. That's one of those things that makes me go, I don't want to do more harm than good, right? I agree with that. I agree with that. That's why I think that culture is that ability to care for each, or not culture, civilization is that ability to care for each other. When you are a civilization, it's when you have the ability to, provide care for multiple people. Um, you have enough food for everybody, and everybody's fed, right? I agree with that. I think that culture is culture and society are very much about how we interact with each other, um, and how what we have today is definitely about the needs of a few as opposed to the needs of the many. And yet it is still about the desires or needs of a few, right? There's still about a desire or need there. Um, Not necessarily a positive thing, but still there and apparent. And I believe that too. Well, and I think that like we see that as a scientific knowledge when we look at epigenetics. Like I, with every single piece of me, believe that all of my ancestors' traumas are written in my bones. All of my ancestors' successes are written in my bones. Um, you know why I believe it? I think it's weird, probably, if I think about it. I think it's because of Clan of the Cape Bear and Gene Emal's belief that the Neanderthals' brains were so big because they carried their genetic memories through their lives. And so they were born with the ability to do things like some animals are born with the ability to do things, right? Like it's a genetic memory. You're born able to walk, or like snakes are born able to, crawl off and hunt, right? Um, so Gene M. All's Earth Children's series purported, and I read that so young, right? Gene M. All's Earth Children's series purported that the reason that Neanderthals' brains were so big was that they were born with memories, right? And so I think that I believed since I was really little that we're born with memories in our brains. We just have to unlock the memory, right? And I think that when I look at epigenetics, I mean, I don't think of it the exact same way, right? Obviously, I don't think that epigenetics means that my brain, knows how to walk, right? And how to be turned or trained or taught, right? I do think, though, that epigenetics reminds me who to shy away from, right? Um, I felt that feeling before 100 years ago. And so it makes me go, yeah, no, right? um, that the trauma that has gone through my bones and through my ancestors is written there to the point that it matters to me, right? And so I do believe that when we look at epigenetics, I feel like I always thought that, I just thought it on a different level. But when they started talking about epigenetics, I went, duh, right? That's sweet of him. Was he also indigenous to the Western Hemisphere, or was he Listen, motherfucker, consent is key no matter what. I mean, I think that I get the Western thought process of knowledge is power, and that we all have a right to all knowledge, right? That's their thought process, I think, on it. And I can kind of understand where they reach that conclusion, right? I guess is the best way to put it. They think that their desire for knowledge trumps other people's need for security and safety. And that's where I have a problem, right? You don't get to decide that you want knowledge and desire knowledge and think that your right to have knowledge trumps other people's rights to security and safety, right? Yeah. Can't trample people under your search for knowledge for funsies, right? And I think that that is one of those things that is just it's best for us to it would be great for us if we study diabetes to stop feeding commodities to people and start giving access to actual healthy food. That would be epic for diabetes and research into diabetes and maybe helping the diabetic issue that we see. Yeah. And that to me, that's the disconnect, the cognitive disconnect that so many of them have. That there is not a desire to improve other people's world, but a desire for them to know how to do it through not improving others, right? Yeah, thousands of years of cultural development and practice of science. Well, and thousands of years of science, even by a Western standard. Western science thinks that they're the inventors of science, but the fact of the matter is that indigenous people have the Western standard of science long before science is refound for European cultures. Yeah, we can agree to disagree. That's always beautiful. Like, yeah, no. No, we can't. We can't agree to disagree when you've decided that you get to control my people, control me. It's not an agree to disagree moment when you're controlling shit. Hello, lovely one. That's absolutely not a agree to disagree. Actually, I have a couple people in here. If you don't mind, I'm adding a couple of people as mods. Um, if I add you as a mod and you're like, listen, your lives are way too annoying to be mods in, so please take me off of the mod thing. Um, let me know and I'll absolutely. Not like we're in a space today where we absolutely, we're having a lot of shit, but we'll probably get to a point where we are having a lot of shit. So be a good idea to have it up and going. Yay. Yeah. I know you shut him down. Well, and I love the fact you've always got a broad amount of knowledge that um, is easy to shut people down with. Like not in a negative, but like the knowledge that you have is powerful enough that when people want to spew shit, and you can, you have enough knowledge to take that shit and go, yeah, nah, yeah, nah, yeah, nah. You do have carte blanche to indiscriminately boot people. Always. You've always had carte blanche to indiscriminately boot people, Star. I am it's been an hour and a half. I am going to go and get food because I haven't. I'm going to try and go live again this evening, though, probably after Jay goes to work, if not a little bit before. So I'm going to try and go live again today, and I will post up something and make sure that people see. Actually, I don't know if they've given me live events yet, but I'll try and do that. And I will absolutely be going live every day for the next few days, so we can get to the point where we have guests as well as get to the point to have more information out or more people out there. And so people can find me again because there's quite a bit of people who I know lost me because I lost them. Um, and so I can get to that point as well. And then I'll probably be doing lives on some of the other things. I almost put Denny up tonight. I almost did Denny, but I've been dying to talk about the bad Durrenberg Shaman. So my next live will probably be like one of the original lives that I did, and it will have Denny up. And then we'll probably be working on Homo erectus again for a while, just so that I get to that point that we're bringing in enough, or bringing in not enough people, but bringing in more people so they can see. And then I'll probably try and go live a couple of times a day for the next couple of days just to get it up in the feed. I know that I have like a couple of weeks before where I was home for something in the beginning of last year, and I went live like every day. And so that I think was a big boost too. So I'll probably be doing that just to try and make sure that the boost is out there so everybody can see it on the FYP. And then yeah, I'll probably try and do morning and evening just so I can get a morning and evening out there. I can't find Rosie, and I need to find Rosie. I miss Rosie. It was so great to see everybody, and it was so great to be able to talk and have the interaction, um, and kind of discuss this one. This one's been kind of fascinating. This is Star's fault. I just want you to all know that I spiraled down the bad Durrenberg Shaman because Star sent me something that Archeo Death did, and I went, oh. And I don't call Star out usually, and I'm not trying to call you out. I'm just saying, Star, thank you so much. You did this. It was amazing. It's been amazing too. She's a really amazing find, and I think that you kind of missed some of it. But it looks like she had the ability to induce a trance state at will because of some of the stuff going on in her spine, and that she was shamanic power from a very young age, and that she had people coming and leaving offerings to her 600 years later. The offering left 600 years later actually is important, and I didn't touch on that. So again, after they are able to thermoluminesce and everything else, the blocks, and then they actually shifted through the blocks, right? Use the meshes that archaeologists use to shift through the blocks. And as they did that, they found a bunch of stuff. One of the things that they had found was in the thermoluminescence that there was an offering left on a layer of earth that is carbon dated to 600 years later. The offering is roughly 3 feet from her burial, and it is 2 roe deer antler headdresses, just like the one she's wearing, pointed at her 600 years later. That to me really shows that continuity of memory, right? Of the ancestry of her power passing down through generations upon generations. You know, it could be that this is still included as a ritual object today within the people that we see it included as a ritual object in today, the Tungo people. It could be that it is still included today because it is something that her or somebody like her wore. 9,000 years ago, right? If we can see that 600 years later, people are leaving offerings of her headdress, of a replica of her headdress for her. And I think that that's a pretty amazing connection, right? I think that that really shows that community that we often talk about in here, right? That connection and that interaction and that nurture, right? Um, when we talk in here about being biologically nurturing and communal, when we talk in here about the fact that that's something that we innately need as a species, this is one of those evidences of this innate need within us and how far back this innate need goes and how impactful this innate need for nurture and community is. They either buried her fourth great grandson in her lap long after she was dead, because she was 30 when she died, or brought her a cousin and buried him with her around the time that she died, right? So they either have this interconnected of community that it's broad speaking at the time of her life, or they have this interconnected of community that it lasts generations. And either way, they have this interconnectedness of community that lasts at least 600 years, right? That need to be biologically nurturing and communal, which we talk about frequently, um, is something that we're lacking in today's society. And the fact that we do not have our biological need of nurture and community met is why many of us are depressed and anxious, why many of us don't leave our homes, why many of us have a hard time interacting, why many of us feel like there's something wrong, right? And like I want to always remind you, I want to remind you today that that is not an indicator that there is something wrong with you. That is a healthy reaction to an unhealthy society. Our society teaches us that to be nurturing and communal is a falsity, that to be nurturing and communal, we're going to speak about it loud and proud, but we're never going to enact it. And so when you need nurture and community and you're not getting nurture and community, your body and your mind reacts in a healthy manner. And that healthy manner is to see that there is something wrong, that this doesn't work, that this is not right, that my mom is supposed to take care of me, that I'm supposed to have 10 aunties and uncles that are part of, and 5 or 6 sets of grandparents and several cousins. And then there's supposed to be another community over there that interacts with our, like when our bodies see that and our minds see that, the reaction of depression and anxiety, the reaction of feeling like something is wrong is a healthy reaction to something that is wrong. So I want to remind everybody today that grace of yourself, love for yourself, the ability to take care of yourself and provide self-care for yourself is necessary. You are living in a society that has disconnected those things and taught you that you're not worthy of those things. And yet we are all worthy of grace and love and compassion and self-care just by being alive, just by breathing. These are necessities for life. And the right to life should include the things that are necessities for life. Therefore, you are worthy of these necessities of life just by being alive. Give yourself grace today. Give yourself the grace you give to everybody else. Give yourself compassion and love today. And remember that it is only those who can see that there is a problem who can fix the problem. If you can't see there's a problem, you can't do jack shit to fix the problem. If you can see that there's a problem, you can actively work to fix the problem and make it better. And as I frequently say and will always believe, I think that the way that we get to the fix is land back on a global scale, returning tending and governance to Indigenous communities, ensuring that Indigenous communities on a global scale have the ability to teach us how to reconnect on a communal level and how to reconnect with the earth on a communal level. Okay, it will come and visit. And that tending and governance does not mean people have to get out of space. It means that we respect and honor our elders and our teachings and return to a space and a time there, like the Durrenberg shaman, we were communal and took care of each other. And we looked at the power of the world around us to interact. Being buried with bones from mammals to cranes to turtles, right? Being buried with all of these different bones shows this interaction with the biome that is so necessary for us that we are so lacking today. And one of the things that tending and governance being returned to Indigenous communities will provide us with is that ability to return to that space and thought process. I'm going to go ahead and go. I will be back tonight, I promise. I'm not exactly sure what time. I'm going to try and set up a live event thing if they'll allow me, though. And I will make sure I share it out. Take care, everybody. Have a great afternoon, and I will see you all soon. Much love, much grace. Remember to take care of yourself. I'll see you guys tonight. I'll go over it again tonight. Absolutely, Trish. And I did do a video on this on my page, and I'm going to do the rest of it. So today we talked about broader than that 10-minute video or 7-minute video that I did. In the 7-minute video that's on my page for the Bad Durrenberg Shaman, it talks about the find. Today we also talked about what the skeletal anomalies and the shamanism would have probably meant and indicated. And we also taught about what the tools were going to indicate most likely, right? I am doing videos on those. I actually intended to do one video on that today when the live opportunity came up. So I will be doing videos on why or what the tool usages would have most likely been, what the tools were, and what the indications from the site will say about the shamanistic practice or the indigenous practice. We did touch today, and I want to make sure I touch about this as I leave. The reason that this individual is called a shaman. The word shaman is of the Tungu people who were colonized by the Russians in the late 1600s. The Tungu people called their religious spiritual leaders, are their spiritual leaders, not religious leaders. Their spiritual leaders, shaman. That is the word that they used for their indigenous animistic spiritual connectors. The artifacts that are found, the belongings that are found, actually, I would say the regalia that is found with her, which is probably be the most appropriate way to state it. The regalia that she's wearing, the ceremonial regalia that she is wearing, is still seen in some ways among the Tungu people today. And that is why she is called the Bad Durrenberg Shaman, because the Tungu people are the people who that word belongs to, and the artifacts and the belongings that she has indicates some connection, some ancestral cultural connection between the two. Much love, everybody. I will see you guys soon. Probably going to go eat, but then I will stop by Trish and see you. And take care. I'll see you guys tonight. Bye. Bye, YouTube. Thank you so much for coming and seeing me. I will be on YouTube again tonight, of course, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.